Ever poured your heart, time, and future into someone else's dream, only to watch them vanish once it came true? Tap that like button. Subscribe if you believe that karma doesn't forget addresses and always delivers to the right doorstep, because what I'm about to tell you proves that sometimes the person who uses your trust as a stepping stone ends up crawling back begging for the one thing only you can give. My name is Thea. I'm 34 years old. And the day my ex-boyfriend sat across from me in a lawyer's office needing my signature to save the empire he built with my money was the day I finally understood that betrayal plants seeds that grow into the most perfect revenge. But before I tell you about that boardroom where power shifted completely, let me take you back to where love blinded me and trust cost me everything, because every story of justice starts with a wound deep enough to teach you who people really are. I met Phoenix Chambers when I was 28 years old at a tech startup networking event in San Francisco. I just sold my first company, a small digital marketing agency I'd built from scratch over 5 years, for $350,000. It wasn't life-changing money in Silicon Valley terms, but it was validation that I could build something valuable from nothing. Phoenix was 31, charismatic and brilliant, pitching an idea for a software platform that would revolutionize how restaurants manage their operations. He had the vision, the technical knowledge, and that particular combination of confidence and vulnerability that made you want to help him succeed. We started talking about his business model, and I found myself genuinely excited about the potential. Restaurant management software was fragmented and expensive. His solution was elegant, affordable, and addressed real pain points I'd heard from restaurant owner clients during my agency days. We exchanged numbers that night, ostensibly to continue discussing his business idea. Within 2 weeks we were dating. Phoenix was unlike anyone I'd dated before. He was passionate about his work in a way that reminded me of myself during my agency's early days. He'd stay up until 3 a.m. coding new features, surviving on coffee and determination. He talked about changing an entire industry, about building something that mattered beyond just making money. I fell hard and fast for him, for his ambition, for the future he was building. 6 months into our relationship, Phoenix's startup, called Nexus Kitchen Systems, was gaining traction. He had 50 restaurant clients using his beta platform, all providing enthusiastic feedback. But he was running out of money. He'd bootstrapped the company with his savings and a small friends and family round, but he needed capital to scale, to hire developers, to build the sales team that would take this from promising idea to actual business. One night, lying in bed in his tiny apartment that doubled as his office, Phoenix turned to me with unusual seriousness. "Thea," he said quietly, "I need to ask you something, and I want you to feel completely free to say no." "I'm listening," I replied. "I need investment capital to take Nexus Kitchen to the next level," he continued. "I've been talking to angel investors, but they want to see more traction before committing. I'm in this impossible position where I need money to get traction, but I need traction to get money." He paused, clearly uncomfortable. "I know you sold your agency. I know you have capital. And I'm wondering if you'd consider investing in Nexus Kitchen." "How much?" I asked, my business brain already calculating while my heart raced. $250,000, he said. I winced. That was the majority of my liquid assets after taxes and expenses. "It would give you 20% equity," he added quickly. "You'd own a significant piece of the company, and when we exit, either through acquisition or IPO, you'd make millions. Plus, you'd be investing in us, in our future together." That last part hit exactly as he'd intended. This wasn't just a business investment. It was an investment in our relationship, in the life we'd build together. I spent 2 weeks doing due diligence. I reviewed his financials, talked to current clients, analyzed the market opportunity, and built projections. Everything looked promising. The product worked. Customers loved it. The market was huge. The only question was execution, and I believed Phoenix had the drive and intelligence to execute brilliantly. I invested $250,000 in Nexus Kitchen Systems. The paperwork was handled by Phoenix's lawyer, documenting my 20% equity stake and board observer rights. Phoenix was ecstatic, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. "You won't regret this," he whispered. "We're going to build something incredible together." For the first year, everything seemed perfect. Phoenix used the investment exactly as he'd promised. He hired 3 developers, 2 salespeople, and a customer success manager. Nexus Kitchen grew from 50 clients to 300. Revenue climbed from basically nothing to over $1 million annually. I attended board meetings as an observer, offering strategic advice when asked but generally letting Phoenix run his company. I trusted him completely. He was my boyfriend and my business partner, building our shared future with every successful client added and every feature launched. Our relationship deepened alongside the business growth. We moved in together into a nicer apartment, splitting expenses and planning a future that included marriage, kids, and financial security built on the company's success. Phoenix would show me revenue reports late at night, both of us celebrating each milestone. We'd reached 500 clients. We'd hit $2 million in revenue. We'd been approached by potential acquirers interested in our technology. Then, 18 months after my investment, things started changing. Phoenix began working later, spending more time at the office than at home. When I'd ask about the business, he'd give vague answers about being busy with product development and fundraising. He stopped sharing detailed revenue reports or inviting me to strategic planning sessions. "You're too close to this," he'd say when I asked why I wasn't being included. "I need to make some decisions without emotional input." The statement stung, but I tried to understand. Building a company was stressful. Maybe he needed space to think strategically without worrying about how decisions affected our relationship. 2 years after my investment, Phoenix announced he'd closed a series of funding round. $5 million from a venture capital firm. I was shocked. He hadn't mentioned he was fundraising seriously. Hadn't asked for my input on terms or valuation. I found out along with everyone else when he sent a company-wide email celebrating the news. "Congratulations," I said that evening, trying to hide my hurt that he hadn't shared this with me earlier. "Why didn't you tell me you were raising money?" "It happened fast," he replied, not meeting my eyes. "The VC approached us, we negotiated quickly, and I didn't want to jinx it by talking about it before it closed." I nodded, accepting the explanation despite the unease growing in my stomach. "What does this mean for my equity stake?" "The VC required some dilution," Phoenix said casually. "Your 20% is now about 12% after the new shares were issued. But the company valuation is so much higher that your 12% is worth way more than your original 20% was." The math was technically true, but something felt wrong about how he'd handled this without even consulting me. Over the next 6 months, Phoenix became increasingly distant. He'd come home late, claiming board meetings and investor dinners. He'd brush off my questions about the business with irritation. "You're not on the management team, Thea," he'd say. "You're an investor. Let me run the company." Our relationship deteriorated alongside his growing coldness. We stopped having meaningful conversations. He'd sleep on the couch, claiming he didn't want to disturb me when he came home late. We hadn't been intimate in months. When I tried to address the distance between us, he'd accuse me of being needy or not understanding the pressure he was under. Then came the day everything shattered. I came home early from a consulting project to find Phoenix packing his clothes into suitcases. My heart stopped. "What are you doing?" I asked, though the answer was obvious. "I'm moving out," he said without looking at me. "This isn't working anymore, Thea. We want different things." The statement was so absurd I almost laughed. "Different things," I repeated. "I invested $250,000 in your company. I've supported you for 3 years. What different things are you talking about?" "You're too involved in the business," he said, finally meeting my eyes. "You treat Nexus Kitchen like it's yours when it's mine. I'm the CEO. I make the decisions. And honestly, I need a partner who can separate business from our personal relationship. You invested money. That doesn't make you my co-founder." The cruelty of that statement took my breath away. I'd given him not just money but emotional support, strategic advice, connections from my network, and endless encouragement during the hardest moments. And he was reducing my contribution to just money, as if I'd been nothing more than a checkbook. "There's someone else, isn't there?" I said quietly. Phoenix had the decency to look uncomfortable. I've been seeing someone from the VC firm. It's not about her. It's about us not being compatible anymore. He left that afternoon. I sat in our apartment, surrounded by furniture we'd picked out together and dreams we'd built together, and felt my entire world collapse. The man I'd loved and trusted had used me for capital and connections, then discarded me the moment he no longer needed either. I called my lawyer, a woman named Helena Foster who'd handled my agency sale. I explained what happened, the investment, the relationship, Phoenix's departure, everything. What are my options? I asked, my voice hollow. Helena reviewed my investment documents carefully. Your equity stake is clearly documented, she said. You own 12% of Nexus Kitchen Systems. That can't be taken from you without your consent. Phoenix can't force you out as an investor. But he can make my life miserable and freeze me out of information, I said bitterly. True, Helena agreed. But he can't dilute you further without your permission if you have standard investor protections. Do you have anti-dilution clauses or pro rata rights in your investment agreement? I didn't know. Helena requested the full shareholder agreement from Phoenix's lawyer. When she received it, she called me immediately with news that changed everything. Thea, she said, excitement in her voice. You have something Phoenix apparently forgot about. What? I asked. Your investment agreement includes a drag-along clause requiring your approval for any acquisition or sale of the company above a certain threshold, she explained. It's standard investor protection. And Phoenix's lawyer included it in your original documents. Without your signature, Phoenix cannot sell Nexus Kitchen Systems to anyone for more than $10 million. My heart started racing. How much is the company worth now? Based on their Series A valuation and subsequent growth, probably somewhere between $40 and $60 million, Helena said. If Phoenix wants to sell for anything approaching fair value, he needs your signature. For the first time since Phoenix had walked out, I smiled. Over the next year, I rebuilt my life without him. I started a new consulting business advising early-stage startups on growth strategies. I moved into a smaller apartment that was entirely mine. I dated, though carefully, having learned that trust requires more than just love. And I waited. Because I knew Phoenix. I knew his ambition, his impatience, his desire for the big exit that would make him rich and famous. He'd want to sell Nexus Kitchen Systems eventually. And when he did, he'd need my signature. 18 months after our breakup, Helena called with the news I'd been anticipating. Phoenix is selling Nexus Kitchen Systems, she said. An acquisition offer from a major enterprise software company. $65 million. The offer requires shareholder approval, which means Phoenix needs your signature. How long do I have? I asked. The offer expires in 60 days, Helena replied. After that, the acquiring company moves on to other targets. Phoenix's lawyers will contact you this week to arrange signing. I hung up and sat quietly, feeling a calm satisfaction settle over me. Phoenix had called me a checkbook, dismissed my contributions, and thrown away our relationship the moment someone shinier came along. Now his entire future, his big exit, his validation as a successful entrepreneur, all of it depended on me. The call came 3 days later from Phoenix's lawyer requesting a meeting to discuss the acquisition and obtain my signature. I agreed to meet the following week. The meeting was scheduled at a law office in downtown San Francisco. I arrived wearing a tailored suit that cost more than I used to spend on entire wardrobes, carrying a leather portfolio that screamed success. Phoenix was already there, sitting next to his lawyer and looking visibly uncomfortable. He'd aged in the 18 months since I'd seen him. His hair had more gray, his face had more lines. Success and stress had worn him down in ways that gave me some small satisfaction. Thea, he said stiffly when I walked in. Thank you for coming. Phoenix, I replied coolly, taking my seat across from him. His lawyer, a sharp man named Colin, launched immediately into the presentation. Miss Thea, as you know, Nexus Kitchen Systems has received an acquisition offer from Titan Software Solutions for $65 million. This represents an excellent return for all shareholders. Your 12% stake would be worth approximately $7.8 million. He slid documents across the table showing the deal structure, payout timeline, and shareholder agreement. All we need is your signature approving the sale, Colin continued. We've scheduled the closing for 40 days from now, contingent on shareholder approval and regulatory review. I looked at the documents without touching them. What's the rush? I asked. Titan wants to close quickly, Colin said. They're consolidating the restaurant software market and want Nexus Kitchen integrated into their platform by next quarter. Any delay risks them losing interest. I nodded slowly, letting silence fill the room. Then I looked directly at Phoenix. Do you remember what you said when you left? I asked quietly. Thea, this isn't the time, Phoenix said, shifting uncomfortably. This is exactly the time, I replied. You said I was too involved in your business. You said my investment was just money, not a real contribution. You reduced 3 years of support, advice, and partnership to a checkbook that had served its purpose. Phoenix's jaw tightened. I was emotional. I said things I shouldn't have. You meant every word, I said calmly. And now you need that checkbook signature to cash out. The irony is perfect. What do you want? Phoenix asked, his voice tight. I want to understand why I should help you, I replied. You threw me away like I was disposable. You started dating someone else while we were still together. You made millions off my investment while treating me like an inconvenience. Why would I sign anything that benefits you? Because you'll make $7.8 million, Colin interjected. That's why. $7.8 million is a lot of money, I agreed. But it's not about the money anymore. Phoenix, his face red, leaned forward. You're going to block this deal because I hurt your feelings. You're going to cost yourself millions because you're bitter about our breakup. This is insane. I stood up, gathering my portfolio. Call me when you're ready to have a real conversation, I said. One where you acknowledge what you did and show some actual remorse. Until then, I'm not signing anything. Thea, wait, Phoenix called out as I reached the door. I turned back, waiting. Please, he said, desperation creeping into his voice. Don't do this. Do what I ask. Exercise my legal rights as an investor. Use the protections your own lawyer built into our agreement. Funny how those seemed reasonable when you needed my money, but now they're inconvenient when you need my signature. I left before he could respond. Over the next 2 weeks, Phoenix tried everything. He called repeatedly, leaving voicemails that progressed from angry to pleading. His lawyer sent formal letters demanding I fulfill my obligations as a shareholder, which Helena easily refuted by pointing out I had no obligation to approve any specific transaction. Phoenix even showed up at my apartment building, waiting in the lobby until security escorted him out at my request. With 30 days left until the offer expired, Phoenix finally sent a different kind of message. A handwritten letter delivered by courier. Thea, the letter began, I've spent 2 weeks trying to figure out how to fix this, and I finally realized the answer is simple. I need to tell you the truth and apologize without conditions or excuses. The letter continued for 3 pages. Phoenix acknowledged that he'd used me financially and emotionally. He admitted that he'd started seeing someone else before our relationship ended. He confessed that he'd minimized my contributions because acknowledging them would have meant admitting he owed his success to someone he'd decided to discard. It was honest in a way Phoenix had never been, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen from him. But it was also strategic. He needed my signature, and this letter was his last attempt to get it. I called Helena after reading it twice. He's trying to manipulate you, she said immediately. That's possible, I agreed. But I want to meet with him anyway. One more time, just him and me, no lawyers. Are you sure that's wise? Helena asked. Probably not, I admitted. But I need to see if there's any genuine remorse or if this is just another performance. We met at a neutral coffee shop the following day. Phoenix looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept properly in weeks. Thank you for agreeing to see me, he said quietly. I'm not signing the documents, I said immediately. Not yet. But I'm willing to discuss terms under which I might consider it. Phoenix nodded. What do you want? First, I said, I want you to acknowledge publicly, not just to me, what my investment and support meant to Nexus Kitchen's success. You're going to include a statement in the acquisition announcement crediting me as a founding investor whose capital and strategic guidance were essential to building the company. Second, you're going to donate 10% of your acquisition proceeds to a scholarship fund for women entrepreneurs. Third, you're going to sign a written apology that I can make public if you ever try to rewrite history again. Phoenix's face went through several expressions. That's more than $7 million you're asking me to give away. I'm not asking you to give it away, I corrected it. I'm asking you to acknowledge reality and make amends. You built an empire on my money and my trust. Now you pay for that privilege. And if I refuse, he asked. Then the deal dies, I said simply. Titan moves on. You stay CEO of a company you can't exit, watching other competitors get acquired while you're stuck. Maybe you can raise more money and try again in a few years. Maybe you will never get another offer this good. Choice. Phoenix sat in silence for a long moment. Fine, he finally said. I'll do all three. But I want something in return. I raised an eyebrow. You're not in a position to negotiate. I'm asking anyway, he said. When this is done, when the deal closes and you have your money and your acknowledgement, I want you to forgive me. Not for me. For you. So you're not carrying this anger forever. I'll consider it, I said. But forgiveness isn't something you can demand as part of a business deal. Over the next week, the terms were formalized. Phoenix's lawyers drafted an acknowledgement statement crediting my role in Nexus Kitchen's success. They created the scholarship fund structure with 10% of Phoenix's proceeds, roughly $6.5 million, committed over 5 years. Phoenix signed a detailed apology admitting to his treatment of me and authorizing me to publish it if he ever contradicted its contents publicly. Only after every document was signed and verified did I add my signature to the acquisition approval. The deal closed 30 days later. $65 million transferred from Titan Software Solutions to Nexus Kitchen Systems shareholders. My 12% stake translated to $7.8 million, deposited into my account on a Tuesday morning. I stared at that number for a long time, feeling something between satisfaction and emptiness. The money was real. The vindication was complete. But it didn't erase the betrayal or the years of rebuilding that had been necessary. The acquisition announcement went out that afternoon. Buried in the corporate language about strategic synergies and market consolidation was a paragraph Phoenix had been required to include. This success would not have been possible without the vision and support of our early investors, particularly founding investor Thea, whose capital and strategic guidance were instrumental in building Nexus Kitchen Systems from an idea into an industry-leading platform. It wasn't effusive, but it was there. Permanent. Public. An acknowledgement that could never be erased. 6 months after the acquisition closed, I received an invitation to speak at a Women in Tech conference. The topic was investing in startups and navigating business relationships with romantic partners. I almost declined, not wanting to publicly discuss Phoenix and our history. But then I realized this was an opportunity to help other women avoid my mistakes. I accepted the invitation. My presentation was honest about both the financial returns and the emotional costs of mixing business with romance. I talked about the importance of legal protections, the value of independent legal counsel, and the necessity of maintaining boundaries even with people you love. I shared my story without naming Phoenix, though anyone who followed tech acquisitions could probably figure out who I was discussing. After the presentation, dozens of women approached me with their own stories. Women who'd invested in boyfriends' businesses and been frozen out. Women who'd contributed sweat equity to partners' ventures and received nothing when those ventures succeeded. Women who'd learned the hard way that love and business require different kinds of contracts. I started collecting these stories and patterns. Within a year, I'd written a book called Trust and Terms, Protecting Yourself When Mixing Money and Romance. The book combined practical legal advice with personal stories, including my own experience with Phoenix. It became a bestseller in the business memoir category, resonating with people who'd learned expensive lessons about trust. Phoenix reached out after the book was published. Not through lawyers this time, just a simple email. Thea, the email began, I read your book. It's excellent, and more importantly, it's fair. You could have destroyed me publicly, But you focused on the lessons rather than personal attacks. That took restraint I'm not sure I would have had in your position. I wanted you to know that I've been in therapy working on why I behaved the way I did. I'm not making excuses, just trying to understand myself better so I don't repeat those patterns. The woman I was dating during our breakup and I split after a year. Turns out building relationships on betrayal isn't a solid foundation. Who knows? The scholarship fund has awarded its first grants. 15 women entrepreneurs received capital and mentorship this year. Watching them build their businesses with support I helped provide feels like redemption from my own experience. I don't expect forgiveness or friendship. I just wanted you to know that your refusal to let me off easily changed me. Sometimes people need consequences to grow. Thank you for holding me accountable even when it cost you time and emotional energy. I read that email 3 times before responding. Phoenix, I wrote, I appreciate your honesty and your work toward growth. I don't forgive you, not fully, because some betrayals leave permanent marks. But I accept your apology and acknowledgement. What you did taught me valuable lessons about protecting myself and trusting wisely. In a strange way, your betrayal made me stronger and more careful, which has served me well. I'm glad the scholarship fund is making a difference. That money, earned from my patience and your need for my signature, is now creating opportunities for women who might otherwise struggle like I did. That feels like the best possible ending to our story. I wish you well, but from a distance. Thea. Today, 5 years after Phoenix walked out with his suitcases, I run a successful consulting practice advising startups on growth strategies and helping entrepreneurs structure fair investment deals. My book has sold over 200,000 copies and generated speaking opportunities across the country. The $7.8 million from the Nexus Kitchen acquisition, invested wisely, has grown to over $12 million, providing financial security I never imagined possible. I'm in a new relationship with someone who understands that love and business can coexist but require clear boundaries and mutual respect. We've built something healthy together, learning from past mistakes without letting them define our future. And Phoenix, last I heard through mutual contacts, is starting another company. He's apparently learned from his mistakes, treating investors and partners with more respect. His scholarship fund continues awarding grants annually, changing lives with money he had to give because I held him accountable. I don't regret investing in Nexus Kitchen Systems. Not anymore. That investment taught me lessons worth more than the financial return, showed me who I am when betrayed, and proved that patience and strategy win over immediate revenge every single time. The day Phoenix needed my signature to save his empire wasn't about destroying him. It was about demanding acknowledgement, requiring accountability, and transforming betrayal into something that served a larger purpose. He thought he could use my money and discard me without consequences. Instead, he learned that trust comes with terms, and breaking those terms has a price that compounds with interest over time. If this story showed you that the person who betrays you during your investment might one day need you to approve their exit, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories about turning betrayal into leverage and using power wisely when it finally shifts in your favor. Drop a comment about a time someone underestimated you and how you proved them wrong. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't immediate destruction but a patient strategy that forces accountability when the person who wronged you has the most to lose. When someone shows you who they are, believe them, protect yourself legally, and wait for the moment when their entire future depends on whether you're willing to sign. That's when you discover whether your goal is destruction or justice, and that choice defines who you become after betrayal. See you in the next one.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoy watching Karma, Payback, come full circle every week, we dive into tales of betrayal and poetic justice. Don't miss the next one. Tap the subscribe button and join the Revenge Squad.